Hello, friends. Some of you know that I have been recently intuitively selecting tarot spreads and doing readings from those basically random spreads. And I've really been enjoying it. It's really been going well. But this morning I woke up, and the first thought that I remember having when I woke up this morning is that I needed to create my own tarot spread. So I started to think about that, and the first thing that came when I was pondering how to go about making a tarot spread was the layout of the cards. And I knew that I wanted to have the layout of the spread relate to sacred geometry. And so I began to think about a platonic solids set that I have and what each of the solids looked like. And I realized that choosing one of them was kind of a no-brainer for me because I have always been, or for a very long time, have been drawn to Merkabas. I love the representation of the combination of the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine. And I love the balance that it represents. I have several Merkabas, and I actually keep a couple of them here on my table. I have this Shungite Merkaba, and then more recently I've gotten from a very dear friend a little crystal Merkaba. So I looked up the structure of the Merkaba. I'm familiar with it, but I wanted to kind of take a look at the points of the Merkaba. So I looked at it and I instantly knew that it was definitely something that I could make into a tarot spread. And so pretty quickly the rest of it fell into place for me. What I wanted the spread to ask about, and how the cards would be laid out on the points of the Merkaba. And so that part of it came about fairly quickly. Then I decided that I probably should put it on paper and make it look nice. That part took hours and hours and hours. And I could get it to look the way I wanted it to look on screen, but when I tried to print it out, it would not print the way that it looked on screen and the way that I wanted it. And so I finally ended up settling for good enough. Largely because I really wanted to do this tarot reading, and it's getting late into the day. So here is what I came up with. This is the design of the spread, and there are cards at each of the points and one in the center. And the parts of the Merkaba, it's two triangles, two 3D triangles that are put together that intersect each other to form this form. And one of the triangles, this one, represents the feminine, and this one represents the masculine. So the questions that I have, or the inquiries, the queries that I have with regard to this shape and its construction, also have to do with the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine and their intersection. So, without further ado, let's get started and see how this goes. I have actually chosen one deck for each one of the positions in this particular spread. I have chosen 3 decks that to me seem quite feminine. I have chosen 3 decks that to me, again, seem more masculine. Of course, all tarot decks contain elements of both the divine feminine and the divine masculine. But different decks, based upon kind of their feel or their theme, at least in my mind, sort of lean more toward one or the other aspect. And then I have a deck here that I've chosen that is very inclusive for me, or exclusive. I'm not sure how I look at it. I look at this deck as not really choosing a gender at all. This is a deck that to me holds no attachments to ideas like gender. That it includes all realms within all the cards. Again, this is my feeling for these particular decks. And the decks that I have chosen, for the feminine, there's a Mucha tarot, based upon the art of Alphonse Mucha. There is a Sun and Moon tarot. There is Naturescapes tarot. And on the masculine side, I've got Morgan Greer, Radiant, Rider-Waite, and The Field. And then this deck that I've chosen to be more of a union is the Osho Zen tarot. So let's go ahead and get started. The first position is a position to represent your feminine nature. Spirit, could you guide me, please, in receiving messages regarding the feminine nature, the divine feminine nature for my audience? Messages regarding the divine feminine nature. Okay. The card that we got for this is the Two of Swords. So with regard to your divine feminine nature, you're very torn. I'm getting the feeling that you have a strong feminine side, and this feminine nature is very important to you, but you feel that it weakens you to show it outwardly. So the second position is what you need to receive. Spirit, can you help guide me to bring messages forth for what my audience needs to receive? The divine feminine aspect of the Merkaba. What does my audience need to receive? Okay, we got the Wheel of Fortune. The Wheel of Fortune. So what this is saying to me that you need to receive is that you need to be willing to embrace your feminine nature, show your feminine nature, and allow that to determine the outcome. And by that I mean without suppressing what naturally comes through, your feelings, your creativity, your passion, your joy, your sorrow, without suppressing that, allowing that to flow through naturally. Let that show you how it will be received, rather than fearing that by showing that nature you will be perceived a certain way. So what you need to receive is the acceptance of allowing your feminine nature to be seen, to be felt, to be authentic, to be real. So let your feminine nature be what it is. Don't try and suppress it. This also is the number 10 card. And I noticed that when it first came out. So 10 is the card of completion. So I feel as though your feminine nature is perhaps your less strong of your two masculine versus feminine natures. And so allowing this side of you to come forward more is going to create more balance. It's going to complete the cycle of becoming whole, of becoming balanced. So again, allow that to come through as it wants to come through, as it naturally comes through. Don't apply any filters. Don't hold back. Just let that feminine side flow, however it wants to flow. Don't, if it's emotion, obviously we all have filters that we fear how other people will see us and judge us based on the emotions that we show. But even more than that, the feminine creative side, if you have always wanted to paint or write or sing, any of the creative endeavors that many of us would love to be good at, don't let that doubt, that self-doubt that you're not good at something, stop you from expressing that. It is, even if you don't feel like what you can create is something good, and certainly when we start the process of creating, it's typically not a natural thing for us right off the bat to be incredibly good at it. Very few people are naturally, I hesitate to say gifted. We all have the capability to be creative. We all have the capability to be wonderfully creative, and successfully creative. But it takes more than just an initial outpouring for that creativity to develop, much like anything else in your life. So if you have the idea that you would like to do something creative, but you're stopping yourself because you don't feel like you'd be good at it, you don't feel like it's valued in society, you feel like you'll look foolish if you do that, you feel like it's a waste of time, whatever your self-limiting beliefs are on that, just put it out there. Again, just give it a try and see what comes around for you if you do. And so the third card is, how will this heal you? How will this allowing your feminine side to come through heal you? Spirit, can you please help me provide for my audience messages on how this will heal them? So we got the Seven of Cups. The Seven of Cups. So the way that this will heal you is there's always going to be twists and turns in the path of life. There's always going to be decisions to be made. There's always going to be doubts. There's always going to be confusion. But by allowing this feminine side, which I am now realizing I forgot to mention, is not only emotions and creativity, but it's also intuition. So allowing your intuition to guide you when your path becomes a little bit convoluted. Allowing your emotions to guide you when you really want them to. When you really wish you could go with what your emotions are telling you, excuse me, but you are holding back. What's going to heal you is allowing that to come through. It'll give you another channel to process these decisions rather than strictly in your head. It will also give you an easier path to processing these decisions, because the feminine side is all about curves. The feminine side is all about flow. The masculine side is much more hard and straight and to the point. So if you allow more of your intuition and your emotions to flow through you to help you to make decisions, you'll actually have an easier time of making those decisions. It will feel more comfortable. It will feel like it just flows better. You don't have to fight against it. You don't have to force it into a particular direction. It will be easier for you. It will heal you by making your life easier when a decision comes up, when a difficult decision comes up, to be able to settle into, to be able to depend on your intuition and your emotions and to trust those, and to kind of make decisions more from a place of, yeah, that feels good, let's go that way, rather than, well, there's this possibility and this possibility and this possibility, and just, well, this one has this pros and cons, and this one has this pros and cons, and this one has this pros and cons. And sometimes those decisions on the face of it pretty much seem equal. They may not seem the same, but they may have like an equal quantity of pros and cons with each one. So by dropping down into your heart, into your gut, and seeing how each one feels, there will be a very, very clear-cut decision that will come so easily. You probably will doubt it because it's so easy to feel which is the correct decision. But allow yourself to feel that. Allow yourself to have that feminine intuition, and that will heal you by making your life easier to come to those decisions that you need to make. And so now we switch to the masculine side. So our first card is to represent your masculine nature. Your masculine nature. Spirit, can you please help me provide for my audience messages regarding their masculine nature? Messages about their masculine, divine masculine nature. Well, this is interesting. We got the Empress, which is probably the most feminine card in the deck. And with that, we got the Six of Swords, which is a card of leaving something behind. Of moving away from turbulent waters. So your masculine side, and this makes sense here with this feminine side being difficult for you. This is saying that you are constantly, your masculine side takes you away from your feminine side. This masculine side is fleeing what you feel to be turbulent waters of your feminine side. You may have a lot more emotion than you're willing to let come out or admit to. And in fact, most of those emotions might be much more turbulent because you don't acknowledge them, because you're constantly trying to run away from them. You're trying to run away from your feminine side. That's what your masculine side is doing. Your masculine side feels like the only way to protect itself is to run away from the feminine emotions. So that's your masculine nature. So the next position that we have, the next query, is what do you need to give? Spirit, can I have an additional message for that, please, Spirit? What does my audience need to give regarding their masculine nature? We got the Wheel of Fortune again. This is the exact opposite position from where we got the Wheel of Fortune before. And we got that with the Five of Pentacles. The Five of Pentacles. So the Five of Pentacles is saying that you are isolating yourself through this pent-up emotion that you have, that you're ignoring, that you're running away from. You are isolating yourself. And your message again is to let that emotion come through. Don't fear that emotion. Bring it forward, let it come through, and it will actually free up your masculine side. Because right now, so much of this masculine side is being trapped or held, bound up with trying to escape your emotions or trying to suppress your emotions. So again, you're being told to let those emotions come through and see what happens. And see that that will bring you out of this self-imposed isolation. You're isolating your feminine side, and in doing that, you may be isolating yourself from others because they are not able to possibly know the real you. They're not able to get close to you because you are suppressing so many emotions. They don't know how to read you. They aren't receiving the emotions that perhaps you'd like to give them because you have a fear of these feminine emotions. Let them go. See what happens. Trust. Trust. And so the final card in the masculine side is, how will this empower you? How will this, allowing the feminine to come through and freeing up your masculine from having to protect against it, how will this empower you? Spirit, can you please bring through messages for my audience on how this will empower them? We got the Two of Cups. So by allowing these emotions to come through and freeing up your true masculine nature, letting your masculine nature come through because it's not trying so hard to run away from your feminine nature, this will bring you together. This will empower you to be whole in your relationships. Oh, such a beautiful reading. And finally, the last position, the center, is what is the outcome of this integration for you? What is the outcome of this integration? Spirit, please bring through messages for my audience on what is the outcome of the integration of these two, divine feminine and divine masculine, within their nature. Spirit, can I have some additional clarification on that, please? Okay. And I apologize. These cards do not list the suits, and I actually think it has more than the 4 suits, perhaps. But the cards that we got, oddly enough, the first card I got was guilt, which is, I believe, the 8 of Swords. Yes, the 8 of Swords. And the 8 of Swords is a card of limiting yourself. Imposing limitations on yourself, strict limitations on yourself. And the other card that I got is the card of experiencing, which I believe is the 3 of Wands. And the 3 of Wands is about looking out to the world, taking in all that you see, touching things, feeling things, experiencing things. So I'm getting the feeling that for some of you, perhaps, that by integrating this nature and allowing this feminine side to come through, your initial experience of that is going to be difficult. Your initial experience of experiencing what that's like is going to be difficult for you. I feel like you have been suppressing this for so long, and you have created so many situations that were less than favorable because of it, that you feel now as though you can't do anything else, and you have made so many, I'm hearing the word mistakes, but I feel like what this really is saying is that you've passed up so many opportunities, and you've shut down yourself. You've again limited yourself. You've not allowed yourself to fully partake, fully feel, fully experience so many things in your past, that now you feel a great deal of remorse. You feel very sorry and perhaps guilty that you have made others around you suffer, when it was not necessary, but you didn't know any better. You didn't realize that by allowing this feminine side to come through, or to flow through uninhibited, that it would actually free up the masculine side to be stronger, to have greater experiences, to be more in the real world. So another message that I'm getting in looking at these cards is that this integration is going to make the masculine habit of thinking, and perhaps in some cases overthinking or only thinking, become much more uncomfortable for you. Trying to work through things strictly by rationalization, strictly by analysis, is going to become more and more and more uncomfortable as time goes on, as you allow this feminine side to come through. But what is going to become so much more comfortable for you is using your gut using your intuition, feeding your creativity, enjoying life. This is going to fall away. Trying to control, being controlled by your thoughts is going to fall away, and it's going to turn into this much more organic understanding of how to experience the world. I went through a phase where I realized that I didn't really feel my body, which seems ludicrous because I've had a pain disorder since I was probably 6 years old. So what I felt most of the time in my body was pain. But what I really came to realize was that I didn't actually feel within my body. I felt the surface of my body. I felt something that was armoring my body, but I didn't feel my emotions. I didn't feel how my emotions felt in my body. And so by moving away from this very, very strong masculine nature that I had as well, and allowing more of the feminine to come through, to feel that nurturing, to feel that love, to feel that vulnerability, I came to realize that I can now feel my world. And I can feel what is right and what is wrong. Let me back up. Not what is right and what is wrong, but I can feel what's right for me. If I shut this down, if I move away from overthinking and needing to act right away and do right away and get stuff done, if I move away from this and I let this flow, I let this openness, this allowing of things to come in and taking time and letting them settle into my body, actually feeling them, feeling how they feel, feeling how it makes me feel, my life is much, much, much easier. And it feels a whole lot better. So, I don't know that we need any more clarification on this, but I wanted to briefly look at the Osho book, because some of the messages that are in this book are so powerful, and sometimes they just open things for me that I didn't see at first within the cards. And Osho has some amazing perspectives on things that sort of come out of left field, that are not what I would have, not a typical understanding of things. So I'd like to read what these two cards talk about. This one, the Eight of Clouds. Guilt. Guilt is one of the most destructive emotions in which we can get caught. If we have wronged another or gone against our own truth, then of course we feel bad. But to let ourselves be overwhelmed with guilt is to invite a migraine. We end up surrounded by nagging clouds of self-doubt and feelings of worthlessness, to the point where we cannot see any of the beauty and the joy that life is trying to offer us. By the way, I had intended to relay a story before I started all this. This morning I went outside and was sending some Reiki to our pond and just enjoying being outside. And it was very, very blustery. It was very, very windy. And air is a masculine element, at least for me, a very masculine element. It pushes. But as I stood there with this blustery wind blowing me all over the place, suddenly I felt a drop of water, and I thought that this wind had blown something off of the roof or the house nearby me, and that probably it had rained last night. And then suddenly I felt more drops, and I realized that it was raining. And I was standing on our covered deck, so I stepped out from under the roof of the deck, and I looked up, and above me there were almost no clouds. There was a tiny, tiny wisp of a cloud above me, and nowhere around me. There were some clouds that were quite a ways off to the northeast. There were some clouds that were very far away to the west, but there were no clouds above me that should have been able to be raining. And rain is a feminine element. It flows. So this happened after I had thought about making this Merkaba spread, and so that to me was a verification that yes, this was what I needed to do. The masculine element of wind and the feminine element of water coming from nowhere, coming out of the air. Feminine coming out of the masculine. It was absolutely beautiful. Anyway, to go on. We all long to be better people, more loving, more aware, more true to ourselves. But when we punish ourselves for our failures by feeling guilty, we can get locked into a cycle of despair and hopelessness that robs us of all clarity about ourselves and the situations we encounter. You are absolutely okay as you are, and it is absolutely natural to go astray from time to time. Just learn from it, move on, and use the lesson not to make the same mistake again. This moment, this here now, is forgotten when you start thinking in terms of achieving something. When the achieving mind arises, you lose contact with the paradise you are in. This is one of the most liberating approaches. It liberates you right now. Forget all about sin and forget all about saintliness. Both are stupid. Both together have destroyed all the joys of humanity. The sinner is feeling guilty, hence his joy is lost. How can you enjoy life if you are constantly feeling guilty? If you are continuously going to the church to confess that you have done this wrong and that wrong, and wrong and wrong and wrong, your whole life seems to be made of sins, how can you live joyously? It becomes impossible to delight in life. You become heavy, loaded. Guilt sits on your chest like a rock. It crushes you. It does not allow you to dance. How can you dance? How can guilt dance? How can guilt sing? How can guilt love? How can guilt live? So the one who thinks he's doing something wrong is guilty, burdened, dead before death, has already entered into the grave. So, the other card, experiencing. This is the Three of Fire, the Three of Wands. Experiencing. An experience is something that can be filed away in a notebook or captured on film and pasted into an album. Experiencing is the feeling of wonder itself. The thrill of communion, the gentle touch of our connectedness with all that surrounds us. The woman in this card is not just touching this tree. She is in communion with it. She has almost become one with it. It is an old tree, and it has seen many hard times. Her touch is gentle, reverent, and the white on the inside of her cape reflects the purity of her heart. She is humble, simple, and that is the right way to approach nature. Nature doesn't bang any drums when it bursts forth into flower, nor play any dirges when the trees let go of their leaves in the fall. But when we approach her in the right spirit, she has many secrets to share. If you haven't heard nature whispering to you lately, now is a good time to give her the opportunity. You just look around, look into the eyes of a child or into the eyes of your beloved, your mother, your friend, or just feel a tree. Have you ever hugged a tree? Hug a tree. And one day you will come to know that it is not only that you have hugged the tree, but that the tree also responds. The tree also hugs you. Then for the first time you will be able to know that the tree is not just the form, it is not just a certain species the botanists talk about, it is an unknown God. So green in your courtyard, so full of flowers in your courtyard, so close to you, beckoning you, calling you again and again. So if you have some guilt, perhaps from suppressing your feminine nature, let that go. Let it go. Let it go and see what happens. And just experience the flow of that feminine side coming through. So, I am really glad to have done this. This was a beautiful, beautiful reading, especially this card. What empowers you? How letting your feminine side come forward, letting go of this masculine control, how that will empower you to come together in unity with those you love in all of your relationships, not even love relationships, but all of your relationships. So let go of the guilt, let go of the control, let go of the fear of feeling, of creating, of knowing, and just experience that. Let that become an organic experience, not something that you make happen, not something that you figure out how to make it happen, just something that happens. And your life will become so much easier, so much easier. Thanks for sharing this with me. Thank you. Thank you for sharing this with me. And I hope to see you again very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.